Alright, so in the last lecture we talked about two facts, right? So we talked about two FAQs, two frequently asked questions. And now I want to dig into where you can go to get resources. You know, because as you go through the training, you're most likely going to have questions, right? You're going to want to know how do I go deeper in any of these skills? So for example, we have an entire section on networking refresher, right? And let's say you're kind of rusty on your IP address skills, or you need a little bit like a touch up on subnetting, right? Or any of the other networking related topics, for example, like routers and switches, things like that. What I've done was I've compiled a sort of an accessory or an additional resource that complements this course on my GitHub page. So let me delete all this stuff. Now that's just one example of the networking refresher. You might want to have, maybe you want to go deeper with something else. Maybe you want to go deeper with lab setup, right? And you need additional help with VMware Workstation, or with Windows Server 2019. You'll have all of that in this resource section. So let me just stop talking about it and let me show you what I'm talking about so that you can see how awesome this is. Now, one thing to keep in mind is this resource is a sort of a work in progress, meaning I am continually adding content to it. But if you go to github.com/Vani, and the I is a 1, had to use LeetSpeak. Actually, Vani was taken, so I had to come up with the next best thing. And the actual name is modern_ethical_hacking. You can go to the GitHub page. You can see I've got some commits there, but really it's just a resource where you can go a little bit deeper in each of the sections. So, for example, the foundational material, right? We're going to get into that in future lessons. If you want to go deeper in MITRE ATT&CK framework, or maybe you don't know what it is, I typed up this little blurb to help you understand, what it is. So at a glance, you can say, okay, now I know what MITRE ATT&CK is. It's a comprehensive knowledge base of adversary tactics, techniques, and procedures based on real-world observations of cybersecurity threats. And then I go into a little bit more detail. I tell you how the data is laid out in matrices arranged by attack stages, from initial access to action on objectives and impact. Tactics are displayed across the top header as attacker goals, right? So I can control click this. I'm going to control click this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this window out and drag it over to the right. Then I'm going to click the other window. And then what I'm going to do, doesn't work quite right. Here we go. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Control minus. And I know it might be a little bit hard to see, but I'm going to zoom in as I'm editing this, so it might be easier to see. But across the top, you can see here what it says. In the left pane, it says, tactics are displayed across the top header as attacker goals. So these are the attacker goals. The attacker wants to gain initial access, or do they want to escalate their privileges? Do they want to gain credential access? Do they want to exfiltrate data? Those are the tactics. Techniques are displayed in columns and detail how attackers achieve these goals. So let's say the attacker wants to gain initial access. How do they do that? Well, they can do a drive-by compromise. They can exploit a public-facing web application. They can phish. And of course, you can expand this and see what sub-techniques are as well. And then, of course, if you dig in a little deeper, for example, if you go into exploit public-facing web application, you can get the procedures. And over here, I tell you, the procedures are the technical finger and keyboard commands for goal execution. And sometimes you can actually see that here. This tactic doesn't have that, I don't think. But some of them do. So for exploiting a public web application, that's kind of broad, right? But if we go to like recon maybe, and we go to like active scanning, maybe there's something in here. Okay, you're making me a liar. You're making me a liar. Sometimes it shows you the actual commands that were typed. I'm having a hard time finding an example of that right now, but the point of all of this was just to show you that this wiki or this GitHub page that I've built will continually have examples and data that you can use to sort of support your studies. Okay, and I'm building this out as we build this course, and you'll see very quickly that it's going to be something you're going to want to bookmark. Okay. This is also a really good resource. It's Portswigger's top 10 web hacking resources. Oh man, this is almost like OWASP top 10. It's that good, and I think it will eventually get to that point. But anyway, that's all I have in this lecture. Next one, I'm going to share my story of how I got into ethical hacking. So I'll see you in the next lecture. Bye.